Yeah. So give me a J. No. Would everybody, let's just take a minute and we'll center ourselves with the chiming of the hour momentarily. But just first of all, welcome. It's good to see everybody on this Mother's Day. And we'll have a few words about Mother's Day at a later point in the service. And it's a day where, it has different meaning for all of us in different ways. And we hold that space for everybody in our congregation, for those who are here, for those maybe streaming online, and for those who are not able to join us in either of those ways this morning. Everybody, for some, it may be a day of sadness or mourning, and for others, it may be a great day of joy. And so we just hold that space no matter where you're coming this morning. So welcome. It is wonderful to have all of you here this morning. If you need facilities like a restroom, there is one in the building just down the sidewalk, and you can feel free to do that. When the kids come up after the children's message, the little ones will have the opportunity to run through the rain. And yeah, that's right. So it's really wonderful to see all of you here this morning, and we're going to have a wonderful hour of worship this day. So let's take some time now and just center our hearts and our minds for an encounter with the living God this morning. All right, as we sing our first song, I invite you to stand as you're able. And the song is When the Lord Redeems the Very Least. It's kind of a newer hymn in terms of the age of most hymns, but it's to the tune of I'll Fly Away. So hopefully it'll be familiar to us. We've done it a couple of times. Here we go. When the Lord redeems. When the Lord redeems the very least, we will rejoice. When the hungry gather for the feast, we will rejoice. We will rejoice. We will rejoice in gladness. We will rejoice. All our days we will sing to God in praise. We will rejoice. When the Lord restores the sick and weak, we will rejoice. When the earth is given to the meek, we will rejoice. We will rejoice with gladness. We will rejoice. All our days we will sing to God in praise. We will rejoice. When the Lord revives the welcome dead, we will rejoice. When the word of God fills every breath, we will rejoice. We will rejoice with gladness. We will rejoice. All our days we will sing to God in praise. We will rejoice. When the Lord releases. When the Lord releases captives free, we will rejoice. When we live in glorious liberty, we will rejoice. We will rejoice with gladness. We sing to God in praise. We will rejoice. We will rejoice. We will rejoice with gladness. We will rejoice. All our days we will sing to God in praise. We will rejoice. Maybe see.
Hello. Hey, y'all. Before we continue singing, I just wanted to come up here and make an acknowledgement. You will see in your guide, there's some asterisks by a few songs, and then at the bottom of the guide on the inside, there's a note there. I just wanted to read that. These songs that are asterisked are played in the loving memory of Ezra Arnold Leshber, who went to be with the Lord on May 12th, 2020. Ezzy Boo Boo was only on this earth for 3 short years, but he has been a beacon of light for so many and continues to be, even though his body has left this earth. So Christopher, Tiffany, even Landon and Jackson and Hildy, your Peace family love you so much. And when you watch this online, you will see some flowers here. And this is I'll just grab them. These have some sunflowers, which I know remind us of Ezzy, and also the bright orange colors. These are for y'all. Jessica, one of our deacons and flower artists, made this for y'all, and we'll bring them to you. But we wanted to mark this space today, as this is a hard weekend for the Leshber family, with a few songs that are incredibly comforting to them this time of year, and that have been for the last 3 years. So those are the meaning behind those songs today. And we wanted all of you to know that and for us to be in that together.
Would you stand again as you're able as we sing Rest in You? When we're restless and when we grieve, my prayer is that we could find rest in God, God's presence with us. Who is God but I know? Who is God, only God? You are high. You are so good. Matchless is your love. Our praise will rise above. Your peace like a river floods over us. Our hearts are restless. Our hearts are restless, so today find rest in you. Our hearts are restless, so today find rest in you. This is where my hope lies. This is where my soul sighs, and I will always find my rest in you. So full of mercy, so full of mercy. Beauty mystery. You are most hidden, good always with us. Our hearts are restless, so today find rest in you. Our hearts are restless, so today find rest in you. This is where my hope lies. This is where my soul sighs, and I will always find my rest in you. This is where my hope. This is where my hope lies. This is where my soul serves, and I will always find my rest in you. You cannot change. Can you change everything? You cannot change. Can you change everything? Sing those words again. You cannot change. Yeah, you change everything. Oh, yeah, Lord. You cannot change. Yeah, you change everything. You cannot change. Yeah, you change everything. One more time. You cannot change. Yeah, you change everything. Let me see.
Oh no. Okay. Hello, everyone. Again. Well, I printed the wrong communion meditation, so I don't have it with me. However, I have a voice, I have spirit, and all that. So, like Jonathan was saying earlier, we all come to Mother's Day in a different way. And sometimes I feel like the way churches come to Mother's Day tends to have to do with like how the pastors come to Mother's Day. And I'm, here to say that a lot of our founding pastors have, for some reason, like quite a bit of mother trauma. So we've always tried to be really mindful about this day. And at the same time, knowing that if you are in the trenches of, mothering, it is nice to have a day like that and to feel seen in certain ways. So we try to hold the paradox on Mother's Day, right? For me, since this is sort of communion moment, time of reflecting, and I think about Mother's Day, I have this memory that just always pops in my brain, and it's of the few college students who didn't have a reason to go home on Mother's Day. And all my friends and all my roommates would go home every year, and it was like the loneliest day of the year. And there would always be like 5 of us who didn't have any reason to go home, and so we would go to lunch with the campus minister, and I don't know, it sucked. So I always never forget that, and I know that a lot of people have different forms of grief and losses that get really exasperated on Mother's Day. For me, interestingly enough, what has been a part of healing for this day has been to kind of think about God as mother. And that has been really liberating, because growing up, you didn't always feel permission to think about forms of the divine feminine. But actually, when you get to that place where you realize that's okay, that God's, every gender and beyond gender, it's really beautiful and it's really empowering to think about the divine feminine. So as I was thinking about this communion meditation this week, I was like, I just wish I had something to reference that talked about like Mother's Day, God as mother, divine feminine. And then I was like, oh wait.
Oh, look what I have in my bag.
Okay, I have a book that I wrote. And honestly, though, if you want a whole book, Kendall wrote a book called Thy Kingdom Come.
That's
And
amazing.
it really is so helpful for like just digging into that really thoughtfully. That's right. Both our books are half off on Amazon right now. I don't know if that means someone's buying them or what, but anyway, you can go check them out. So I was going to just read a little snippet from my chapter on stepping into the divine feminine, and then we'll have our communion moment. I have often wondered why we even talk about Mother's Day at church in the first place. What about it makes it theologically relevant? Perhaps it is because we understand and experience God through family metaphors. We've known God in the Christian faith predominantly as Father. We even know God as Babe in the manger every year at Christmas. Maybe we throw so much emphasis, celebration, and reverence behind Mother's Day because we are subconsciously aware of how much Mother God is missing from our faith equation. I've got lots of gratitude for moms. I am one myself, and let's get real, it's a pretty thankless job most of the time. So I enjoy the extra attention my family gives me on Mother's Day. But everything that is true and wonderful about mothers is something we first see and learn from the divine feminine, Mother God. The nature of mothering comes from God, and it is a part of each of us, too. Woman, man, somewhere along the gender binary or beyond, each of us experiences mothering, and each of us practices mothering all the time because God defines mothering work. And God defines the nurturing love and energy we attribute to the concept of mother. This is what God does for us. God mothers us by bringing us into new life. God mothers us by nourishing us with divine presence. God mothers us offering sustenance through divine feminine hope. Mother God wants us to be healed. She wants us, her children, to be well, to be healthy, to be protected and nurtured, and to know her unconditional love, the kind of love a mother gives. So as we step into our communion moment together and we read this liturgy, I just hope we can keep that in mind, not just on Mother's Day, but all year round, especially in our faith contexts. And also, I just want to say, I have never been here when it was raining. It is so loud. But we'll carry on. Let's read this together. I need your help. God is within you.
God is also within you.
Lift up your hearts.
Join in the beloved community.
Let us give thanks for the blessing of life.
Together we raise our voices in gratitude.
Pray with me. God, help us remember that when we limit or confine your gender, we limit our own imago Dei within us. Help us remember this in church, at home, in prayer, all the ways that we engage existence on this earth. Amen. Great is the mystery of faith.
Christ has reimagined death. We join him in bringing heaven to earth.
So we'll start with the front row, which is one person. Cool. And you'll come to the inside, get your communion, come back around to the outside, and there's some hand sanitizer too. You'll dip your bread into the juice, not your fingers, just your bread. Let's do this.
Slide. One emergency, it's the next. It's like coming in and out.
Yeah.
I turn the gate up anymore.
Wes is gonna do the kids' message, but, wait, what was I gonna say? Oh, after the kids' message and the kids go over, we're gonna send them like 2 per adult and come back to get them so that they can all go with umbrellas and not get all soaked. Noah's Ark style, yes. That sounded like my joke on mine.
sound on the screen.
Okay. Hi, I'm Wesley, and I'll be doing the kids' sermon. Do you know what today is? Yeah, that's right. It's Mother's Day. So for Mother's Day, I'll be talking about God as a mother. We all have women in our lives who are mother figures, whether it's our mom, grandmothers, aunts, or even one of the women here at church. Mothers are everywhere, and they love us unconditionally just like Jesus does. Did you know that the Bible has a lot to say about mothers? Proverbs 31 says, "When she speaks, her words are wise, and she gives instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her house and suffers nothing from laziness. Her children stand and bless her." Our mothers are wise and kind, and they are treasured by the Lord. God loves all mothers, and He wants us to love our mothers too. At the end of the verse, it explains how the children stand and bless their mother. This week, I want you all to bless your mother figure and be grateful for her. We have so much to be thankful for when it comes to our moms and those who love us like mothers. God used them to bring us into this world, and He uses them to lead us and love us just like Him. As we celebrate Mother's Day, let's tell Mom or any nurturing woman in our life that we love her, show them kindness, and also thank them for their patience, kindness, and wisdom.
If you're a small child, go to
Yes,
children's
2 by
food
2.
with Miss Amy.
The children are going with an adult. Look, Miss Becca's over there. She's raising her hands. Her beautiful
got an
caftan.
umbrella.
She's showing us. You're welcome. Happy Mother's Day.
So great.
Y'all are doing great. Following directions exactly right. We've got a beautiful umbrella and some beautiful ladies taking us. Looks like we got some golf umbrellas, so it's serious business. Hello.
All claps.
Everything. The golf claps. The tiny golf claps. I am going to do a call and response read for all of you today. The words will be up here for you in the purple or pink, whatever color we decide it is this week. Fuchsia. I always, you know. But I will read the whole thing if you would join me in the bold and the highlighted. We give thanks for the parents who embody great love, who transcend gender stereotypes, who are still becoming thanks to parenthood. There is also time today to recognize those who long to be parents, those who grew while feeling the absence of a parent, those who did not feel safe with or loved by their parent, those who have buried a parent or a child. And for all the parental figures in our community, your gentle strength and presence matters. Your devotion reminds us how to love other people's children as our own. If the message and tasks for today are simple enough, find gratitude in the miracle. It is a great gift to know a parent, to celebrate with a card and a hug, an easy story about affection and care that has been given your way. If you are lucky, they will confess for the millionth time how you changed their own lives too. For the galaxy of loving mothers, fathers, and adults made vulnerable by the work of protection and love, we give thanks. I'm going to read 2 scriptures. The first comes to us from Psalms.
Get up close to it, girl.
Psalms 19, verses 7 through 10. Your law, Yahweh, is perfect. It refreshes the soul. Your rule is to be trusted. It gives wisdom to the mighty. Your purposes, O God, are right, and they gladden the heart. Your command is clear, and it gives light to the eyes. Holding you in awe, Yahweh, is purifying
it endures. Your decrees are steadfast, and all of them just. They are more precious than gold, than the purest of gold, and sweeter than honey fresh from the comb. And the next scripture is from the book of Acts, chapter 17, 22 through 30 something. It's small.
34.
Then Paul stood up before the council of the Areopagus and delivered this address. Citizens of Athens, I note that in every respect you are scrupulously religious. As I walked about looking at your shrines, I even discovered an altar inscribed to an unknown God. Now which you are worshiping in ignorance, I intend to make known to you. For the God who made the world and all that is in it, the sovereign of heaven and earth, doesn't live in sanctuaries made by human hands, and it isn't served by humans as if it in need of anything. No, God is the one who gives everyone life, breath, everything. From one person, God created all of humankind to inhabit the earth and set time for each nation to exist at the exact place where each nation should dwell. God did this so that human beings would seek out, reach for, and perhaps find the one who is not really far from any of us, the one whom we live and move and have our being. As one of your poets has put it, we too are God's children. If we are in fact children of God, then it is inexcusable to think that the divine nature is like an image of gold, silver, or stone, an image formed by the art and thought of mortals. God, who overlooked such ignorance in the past, now commands that all people everywhere to reform to their lives. For a day has been set when the whole earth will be judged with justice, and this judge, who is a human being, has already been appointed. God has given proof of all this by raising this judge from the dead. When they heard this about the resurrection of the dead, some sneered, while others say, "We must hear you on this topic some other time." At that, Paul left the council, and a few women and men joined Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, a woman named Damaris, and a few others. We hear the voice of God through these words.
Thanks be to God.
Jana's mad at me because that was long. I'm sorry, Jana. You did great. Good morning, friends. I gotta get the recording. Can you hear me out there? Am I on it? Okay. Let me turn my recording on so that we have this.
Eat the mic. Gotta be close.
What's up? All right, I'm right there. And it's recording. I'm going to share a reading from the Gospel of Matthew this morning. It's from Matthew chapter 27. It starts in verse 45. And it says, From the 6th hour of the day, or noon, darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. This, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, This man is calling for Elijah. And immediately one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with vinegary wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But others said, Hold back, let us see if Elijah will come to save him. Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and relinquished his spirit. Then, look, the curtain of the temple was torn from top to bottom in two, and the earth was shaken, and the rocks were split, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. Then after his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now when the centurion and those with him who were standing guard over Jesus saw the earthquake and what took place, they were terrified and said, Truly, this man was God's son. We hear the voice of God through these words.
Thanks be to God.
Sometimes I'm a good friend, and this weekend I finished Aurelia's book. Don't worry about when it came out. It was very good, and you should all read it. This wasn't planned like where she forgot her meditation and had her book, and I was saying this. This all just a coincidence for real. But it was delightful, and it fit really well with what I was thinking about when approaching this sermon series. You get to hold baby Hildy? That's a good baby. Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm focused. Ray and I recently had a conversation and reminisced on the raised Catholic in the South to evangelical teen / young adult to deconstructed with a bias towards the mystical burnout on religion adults. That's a pretty unique pipeline. I don't know if anybody else here has that one, but yeah, okay, a couple of you. Yeah, it's really wonderful. And she talks a lot about that in her book, and it resonated with me because I had similar experiences being in the South and being Catholic, and all of my friends were not. And so, like, I was not Christian. Like, I worshiped Mary, and all of that was bad. And I internalized a lot of that. It was very hard for me. She covers it much better. Go check it out. But when I was thinking about cycles of faith and looking at that as a broad cycle of my own faith journey, and how we were kind of having a conversation about this series, what we were doing, I kind of had this idea of where I wanted to go, what my sermon was going to be about, and like it happens regularly, that changed. Usually it's when I like go to the lectionary text because I like to do that, and I'm like, oh, like that's not what this text is about. I figure something else out. Sometimes it's when I come across something like in a podcast or in a book that I'm reading, and I get really fixated on it for like 2 or 3 weeks. Get really nerdy about tea because I read a book about a monk and a robot who drank some tea. It was really good. But what happened this time is it was both. Hit the lectionary text, got into a real nerdy period about Dorothy Day. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Super chill lady. You should check her out. But what happened was there's this book called The Unruly Saint by an author named D.L. Mayfield. It came out last fall, winter, and is a really great look at Dorothy and her life and who she was. It's been on my reading list for a while. I picked it up a couple weeks ago. I've been at least Dorothy Day curious for like a long time. Again, being raised Catholic, I know that I heard that name somewhere in my childhood. I couldn't tell you if it was like positive, like, hey, we like this lady, or like, hey, this lady is the worst. Because again, Catholics in the South, you're probably not going to get a great view of Dorothy Day. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I remembered that I knew who she was. Like, I knew that name. I knew that she was this Catholic person, didn't know a ton about her. I remember in college, I had a professor who was super into Dorothy Day. We talk about her and her life, and like find ways to make her relevant to what we were doing, things like that. And so, got Dorothy Day quotes and little snippets until eventually I picked up her autobiography or memoir, The Long Loneliness, which sounds like a really fun read. You should pick it up. If you just today is a great day for a read like that, to just really get in your feelings and hate everything. I want to say that I've lived here my whole life, and I know that we're in an El Nino season, and so we're going to get a lot of rain, and I'm great with that. If I thought I could live anywhere else, I would live in the Pacific Northwest where it was just like this all the time. I know some of you don't care for this, and I'm sorry. This is it for me. I love it. I'm going to land the plane eventually. The Long Loneliness, I went from kind of knowing who she was to hearing these kind of, not out of context quotes, but not really fully understanding what was going on, to reading about Dorothy Day from Dorothy Day's perspective. It was like I was getting to know somebody who were telling me stories about themselves. I really enjoyed it. And so reading Mayfield's book, The Unruly Saint, kind of felt like hearing some of those stories again, hearing new stories about an old friend from like a mutual friend. It was really neat. I enjoyed that. And then she references, and used a lot in her work, the book by Dorothy Day's granddaughter, which I also then read after I read her book, because that's what you do. You get like, oh, I want to learn this thing, and now I'm going to do the next one. So I got this really interesting picture of Dorothy Day over the last month, recalling my experiences reading The Long Loneliness, reading about somebody else who had kind of studied her, and then reading from her granddaughter. And her book is about Dorothy's relationship with her daughter, Tamar, who is the mother of Kate, who has written the book. But not only does she examine her relationship with her mother and her mother's relationship to Dorothy, she also goes back and examines Dorothy's relationship to her mother and how that really has shaped all the way down who they are and who she is and what's gone on. What I loved is that Mayfield, kind of early on in her book, she calls Dorothy Our Lady of Perpetual Conversion. And I loved that. I thought that was so cool. And so I texted her earlier and said, hey, The sermon title is going to be Chasing Perpetual Conversion. So that's where we're at. That's how we got there. All right, we're doing some other things. But she calls her Our Lady of Perpetual Conversion. And Dorothy is a badass, okay? She never failed to see the world as it was and try to see if it could be another way. Everything she encountered that she thought was an injustice or a wrong or wasn't in line when she had her own conversion to Catholicism later in life, around 30. Even before that, she kind of went, hey, the order of things is not great. It's not right. There are people who are without. How can we fix that? There's so much. So she goes on to found the Catholic Worker Movement, which involves a newspaper that still exists today, but it involves a lot of what they would call Catholic worker houses of. Does anybody know the word I'm looking for? Does anybody know the story?
Charity?
House of charity, houses of. There's something. There's a word for it. I have to look it up. Anyway, but she goes on to highlight all the other things that Dorothy encountered and the changes she sought to make because of them. Because, as she says, Dorothy was Our Lady of Perpetual Conversion. And so she sees something new. She wants to change what's going on. She founds the Catholic Worker Movement with Peter Morin, who she really says from the time. Houses of Hospitality. Thanks, Jed. I really appreciate that, man. She's really intentional to say that Peter Morin really is the founder of the Catholic Worker Movement. And I say that because I think it's really important to understand a little bit of the way that Dorothy saw herself, which was not as a saint. She's on record saying over and over, she thinks saints are boring and that they're not seen holistically as people. Because Kate Hennessy, her granddaughter, is going to give us a pretty good picture of who she was as a person, which wasn't always a great mother. If you're founding a movement and producing an almost daily paper, you don't always have a lot of time for mothering, and you might outsource that to a boarding school at some point. You might outsource that to the people who are coming in and out of your apartment where you're feeding people all the time. It might have a negative impact on your relationship until later years in your life and in your mother's life where that's reconciled, which Kate documents in her book. But she gives us a really honest view of who Dorothy was. She wants us to understand that she was a good woman who had these wonderful intentions, but she was also flawed. She wasn't perfect. And that, yes, she had these changes, made these changes, experienced these changes, but they didn't always have positive outcomes in the end, despite what her intentions may have been. So in my life, I've found myself to be a little bit like Dorothy in the way that Mayfield calls her Our Lady of Perpetual Conversions. I want to change, to learn, to grow. I feel stagnant when I hold on to something too tightly or for too long, particularly in my faith life. Never understood the idea, people talk about, I wouldn't want to change what I think about that, or, I've thought this for 20 years and I would never change that. I'm sorry that I said that like an old white man, but most people who say that are old white men, so I apologize. But what I experienced is, and I think about it, I go, man, when I was 15, this is 20 years ago, if the things that I thought and believed and held closely at that time, I haven't taken them and at least thoughtfully evaluated them, maybe they didn't change. Man, what a waste of time. If my experiences as a person, as a friend, as a parent, as a child, as whatever, haven't caused me to re-examine those things and potentially see change, I'm wasting my time. I hope that things that I held as core truths at 10 and 15 and 20 and 25 and 30 and 35 look different by the time I'm in my 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. I really, really hope that's the case. And so far I've experienced to be. Some of the major conversions that I've experienced would be when I made that switch as a teenager from being in the Roman Catholic Church to being involved in a very large evangelical church where I lived, because that's where my friends were. And so I had what we would have called in those circles a conversion experience, a salvation experience. And that was a big deal. And so I kind of moved into making that a big core part of my identity for a long time. Through that, I found myself in a place, there was a year of my life that I lived in New Orleans and had experiences there that made me question a lot of what I thought about homeless people or about poverty or about food and all these kinds of things. And so I kind of moved from that, kind of large tent evangelical to being more comfortable in some of the social justice aspects of that, and seeing what Scripture had to say about that and how faith informed that and things like that. And that really moved me to a place of going, oh, does some of this suck? And it did. And then to being in a place where I went through, again, what a lot of people in our community would look at as deconstruction, and finding myself more comfortable in a place that embraces the mystery of faith, which is something that I had as a child in the Catholic Church. And even that phrase. And so being in a place where that means more to me than it ever did. So I know that change or conversion of thought or practice or belief can be difficult. It can be intimidating. It can be scary at times. For many of us, it's what kept us in other communities we were in, whether that was faith communities, work situations, friend communities, maybe our families, whatever the case may be. There were times where those things kept us there because it's intimidating and scary to think about, well, okay, this may have changed for me, but what if I stay here and help it change for these people? What if I'm an agent of change? What if I bring about different thought here? And I also know that for many people who are here, you're in this community because that didn't pan out. That's what happened for me. And again, I know there are other stories like that here. Because what we found was that so many of the people in those circles weren't interested in perpetual conversion or even more than one conversion. The focus and the heartbeat is a single conversion from not believing in Jesus to believing in Jesus, and then taking all the stuff from the not believing in Jesus side and reevaluating that and examining that and changing it to this, but then no more reevaluating or examining. And maybe that's not everybody's experience. It was my experience, and I know it was an experience for other people who are here. So that a lot of those folks aren't interested in conversion of life beyond that single moment that capital S saves them from hell, eternal conscious torment, getting out of that, like high five. The only kind of conversion that anybody needs, again, in some of those circles is just that one, to become like the other people in those circles. Never mind a conversion away from scarcity mindset, a conversion away that says, I need to get everything I can get, and that way there's more for me. There's only so much. It's not pie. A conversion of thought away from that. A conversion in our minds away from people seeing people living on the streets as a drain on our society, on our culture, to seeing them as people to be known and understood. Conversion away from a belief in Christian supremacy for all people in all places, and a better understanding that one of the reasons I happen to be and find myself as a Christian is that I was born in the South of the U.S. in the late 80s. If I was born somewhere else in a different time, I might have been something else. That's okay. My experience with the people in this room and those watching online, hello, has been one that's a bent towards perpetual conversion. That you are not people who are afraid of that. You are people who welcome it, people who embrace it, people who think deeply and love widely, as we like to say here. Did I get that right? Sometimes I get them, oh, hey, it's right there on the screen. Fantastic. Sometimes I get it mixed up in my head. So I'm really glad I got it right.
It works. It still works. Great.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. It's interchangeable. And we did that on purpose. I wasn't here. I don't know. In the text that we read today from Scripture, we see a couple different things. It's less explicit in the Psalm, but if you go back to the Psalm, and I'm going to read from a different translation, but the teaching of the Holy One restores or is restoring the soul. The decrees of the fount of wisdom are making wise. The precepts of the all-knowing God are rejoicing the heart. The commandments of the fire of Sinai are enlightening the eyes. The reverence of the Most High is standing forever. These are active things that are happening. They are not single one-time events. They are actively going on. To think that there's a God who doesn't expect that of us doesn't make a lot of sense to me. that it would be single, one-time use. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Thank God that she doesn't expect that of us. And I can't believe that the Roman centurion, who would have left the experience of understanding who Jesus is at the end, hey, this is the Son of God, isn't going to leave that experience and not examine any other aspects of their life. That they're going to have participated in the execution, maybe from as far back as, putting the crossbeam on Jesus, following him down, being a part of that, not having that change of mind, and then not being like, hey, I wonder what else I might have been wrong about. I can't believe that. Just been a part of this execution of this person and have this 180 change. You want to tell me that guy wasn't going, hold on a second. Okay, maybe there were some other things I wasn't right about. And then carrying that on with him through the rest of his life. They go, hey, I was wrong about that pretty important thing. I wonder what else in the 15-year sense I might want to reevaluate. I might want to see what could change. Paul. I know you do. And you helped me love Paul better, so I appreciate that. Were you being sarcastic? Oh, sometimes you do like Paul. And we had that really great conversation like a year ago where Natalie Webb had a really great conversation with us about Paul and helped me reframe some of the ways I felt about Paul coming out of the 5 to 7 years previous to that. So that now when I read Paul, I try to do a better job of seeing Paul through the lens of Jesus instead of Jesus through the lens of Paul. That's been important for me because Paul comes to this place in Athens, to this place where the thinkers and movers and shakers come to talk and share ideas. He's like, hey guys, I got one for you. He's got all these like deities and priorities and all this stuff, and you got this one that says to the unknown God. So it's not even like you're saying there might not be one out there you don't know about. Let me tell you what I think about this one and get some feedback from you. Because that's what they did in this place. That's where you went to do that kind of thing. He's acknowledging that they have a large number of things, ideas, and deities they can give their time, talents, and money and devotion to. But what about this unknown God that you guys have a statue for already? It's almost like he's saying, hey, like you already know you might be missing out on something. So what if you just gave some thought to that? And that's not unlike the world we happen to live in today a little bit. There are all kinds of, we live in a very pluralistic culture. I wasn't always great with that. I'm in a place now where it kind of makes a little more sense to me. There are people with different experiences and backgrounds and traditions that they come from that shape who they are, the same way that those things shape who I am. A lot of us have had an experience like that in our past, a conversion experience, right? We talk about that in that capital E evangelical world, but that's one of the focal points, is having that conversion or salvation experience. Would have been part of like what we call your capital T testimony. Most things have a capital in those circles. Like it has to have a capital so you know it's that specific thing. Your conversion experience, your testimony, your salvation story. Even when I was in the middle of it, I was like uncomfortable though with the idea that it was singular, that it was a one-time thing. One of the experiences that I had when I went to college, my degree just says Bachelor of Arts in the Bible. Didn't get much, we didn't get real narrow in it. But as I did that was one of the things where I was like, maybe some of this is like full of it. And one of them came from this experience when I was sitting in a Greek class, and our professor, I can't tell you what passage it was, I'd have to go back and look at it, but he's talking about the phrasing that's used that says like, hey, you're saved and now you do all these things. It's like, hey, but guess what? The way that's actually written says that like you were saved, you are saved, and you are being saved. It is a continuum, a spectrum, and it doesn't end. It doesn't have like the endpoints on it. It has the arrows on it, which in math means it goes forever. I learned that because my wife is a math teacher. But what I thank you, I appreciate that. What I walked away from that going is like, oh, like we all know that it's not a one-time thing, but we just pretend like it is. I don't understand that. And so again, that led into this process of conversion of thought about the way that I interact with the text, with the Bible, and understand what it is and how it can work in my life. And so I wonder, for the people in this room, when we come to the teachings of Jesus, and when we look at some of these stories in the New Testament, if we really think or really believe or really have considered that the early church, that the early Christians would have accepted singular one-time conversion, because I don't think they would have or could have. It wasn't the way that their brains were wired. It wasn't the way they were formed at the time. They were formed for perpetual conversion. They were formed to understand that the way we look at and understand and interpret the text can and should change. That's the world you came out of, where then it's like no wonder that changing your attitude or understanding or practice or belief can seem or feel scary. It's either almost or explicitly stated that if you do that, you'll lose everything that comes with it. You'll lose community, you'll lose people, you'll lose support, you'll lose love. So don't chase perpetual conversion. It'll lead to temptation and emptiness. If that's the message you were given, it's the message I was given. If that's the experience you had, it's the experience that I had. I'm sorry. The God who was active in the psalm this morning, the God who was revealed to the centurion that Paul talks with the Athenians about, did not and would not support that. I can't believe that. So where does that leave us? We talk often about being a small but mighty community, and we are. We're a community that I believe embraces perpetual conversion. We support it. We support each other through it. It's a grace I've been given by this community more than once. It's a grace I've seen given over and over again to the people who call this place their spiritual home. What do we do with that? We look at the life of someone like Our Lady of Perpetual Conversion, Dorothy Day. We find encouragement that she was committed to her causes, even though she was hopelessly flawed, like many of us. We can examine our own conversions and remember that no, it doesn't say Holy Spirit. We can remember that, holy shit, look how far I've come. You ever get those two confused? Is it just me? No. Look at how much I've grown. We can find hope in the active presence of God in our life. And we can remember that even the most far from God, as we might have considered the centurion to be or the people in Athens to be, can come to the understanding and appreciation of the divine. So my confession this morning, my perpetual conversion to now, has led me to a place where I'm okay with telling people that I'm a capital C Christian and using that word. And I wasn't for a long time. I was scared of it. Because some Christians make it a crappy thing to call yourself. But I'm in a place where my hope and my intention and what I've been gifted by this community, and I hope you have as well, is that I inhabit the space around me. I interact with the people around me in such a way that says, hey, maybe it's different than that guy I saw on the news. I super hope that it's different than that. Aurelia and I were talking a while back, and I said, how the hell are you still a Christian? And her answer was much the same as mine, and it's that it's the framework that I was given that works best for me now. I said earlier, one of the bigger reasons is that I was born in Texas in December 1987. What else was I going to be? I was born to a white family in Texas in December 1987. We'll get a little more granular there. But it also goes back to, this is the way that I've been given to view and interact with the world. I've examined some other ways, and I see value in them, and I've even incorporated some of them into what it means to follow the teachings of Jesus. But it's the best way that gives me space for perpetual conversion in my life now, to understand that it doesn't have to be one way. There may not be a single right way, and that that's okay. In my faith life, I'm in a place in my cycle where I'm okay being who I am, where I am, to the point where I actually do tell people about it now. I tell people about this community and about these people, and about what we do here, and about what's important. I tell people all the time, this is the only kind of church that I could see myself being a part of. And we're like the only one in the area. So it's this or nothing for me. Might be the same for some of you as well. Maybe it's something you've felt the need to have a little bit of permission for as well, to be comfortable in who you are and where you are. My hope is that as you consider what perpetual conversion might look like for you in the framework of your faith, that you be reminded that this is a place that embraces that and loves you. But to pray, and then I don't know what's next on the guide, so whoever's next, be ready, I guess. Yeah, isn't it? It was really smooth, I felt. God, thank you for today and the opportunity to share not only who you are, but who you have been to me, and how I've seen that come to life in this community. I know that I'm not the only one who's had those experiences with these people and some of the other outside scenarios we talked about. My hope is that we're able to examine our own lives, see where conversion has happened, understand that your hope, your desire for us is to grow. Grow in love, grow in peace. Amen.
See as you're able to see. That's my so it's got all to receive every branch of his tree. Lord, come as the lion, come as the dove, just let there be life, life from above. So on the restless sea, hold on. Every heart that yearns for what will be. Hold on. Every creature growing from the earth. Every corner of this wild world. As we rise from our knees, as we rise from our knees, where soil and sky all to receive every branch of his tree. Lord, come as the fire. Lord, come as the fire. Lord, come as the rain. Lord, let there be light, like you gave.
Every soul on the restless sea. Every heart that yearns for what will be. Hold on. Every creature groaning from the curse. Please, every corner of this wild earth. Every soul upon the restless sea. Hold on. Every heart that yearns for what will be. Hold on. Every creature groaning from the curse. Peace, every corner of this wild earth. Peace.
Okay, y'all can sit down because we just have a few announcements. One, we pride ourselves, it's on our taglines everywhere, that we have short sermons here. So you may have noticed that wasn't really a short sermon for us. And so what happens when you're a preacher here and you do a long sermon, you get shamed publicly. So, every once in a while, it happens to all of us, the Spirit just like strikes us and we write a 30-minute sermon. So that's what happened. It happens every few years. It's okay. We'll be back to our regular 12 to 18-minute sermons next week. No, seriously, next week is our watch party for May, and those sermons are 10 to 12 minutes. Jonathan's preaching. We will be in different homes. If you have questions, just please come see me directly or go to the email, watch your email, because we'll have instructions coming out this week. And then starting from here on out, it's kind of basically summer. So we are going to be here every fourth Sunday through the summer. So we'll be here the fourth Sunday in May, June, July, and August. The fourth Sunday. And we'll have additional watch parties in the summer because, as you can see, when you take shame and guilt out of the equation, people don't come to church. And that, I've noticed a direct correlation with that happening more in the summer. So we're just anticipating smaller crowds, and we also are being mindful about our budget, so we'll be here fourth Sundays. And then in the fall, we'll move back to our usual rhythm of twice, second and fourth Sundays. Okay. You can see all of this, like, I don't know, on the email from, just, I don't know.
Or Facebook, social media. Facebook.
It's getting there. I'm getting there. Yes, in the email. Okay, the other thing I wanted to say is that Round Rock Pride is on June 3rd, and if you're going to be around, please go to the email. If you're not on an email list, you really want it. Go to the email, and where it says Pride, click on it because there's a sign up. We have people who can like stay at the booths. We have an introverted and an extroverted role for each hour. So in the email, if you're introverted, you're allowed to talk to people. It's just only when you feel like it. And so we have volunteers at the booth, and then if you're not coming to Pride, there are things you can donate, like water and things like that to help us prepare for that day. So everyone go look at it, even if you're not going to Pride. I think that's all. Fundraiser. Our fundraiser went to print. So for those who ordered fanny packs, those will be coming. And I think we raised like $680. So we're using that to do some printing, affirmation cards, and I think we're gonna try to make like a banner similar to the one that's outside, but like maybe rainbow. We'll see. And we're printing some things and things like that.
Nice.
our closing song. My mic doesn't work, so I'm going to yell at you. But, oh, that's cool. So it's bringing the word to life. And so if you'll just, stand as you're able, feel free to move about. And what would make it really awesome after we are done, for those who are able, if you want to help break some of the stuff down up here, if like one person could take one thing to the trailer, it'll go a lot quicker in the rain and all of that kind of stuff, and it'll probably be a little easier. So for what that's worth, if you're able, if you have plans, that's cool too. So. I'm not going to guilt or shame anybody about that. May the light flows from you, flow in me. May the joy that comes from you come to me. May the light that shines from you shine through me. May the love that pours from you pour out of me. Bringing the world to life, showing us what it means to live. In you we live and move and breathe, bringing the world to life. May I be your hand, reaching to feed the hungry. May I be your touch, comforting those who mourn. May I be your bird that walks in dark places. May I be your voice, speaking grace and peace. Bringing the world to life, showing us what it means to live. In you we live and move and breathe, bringing the world to life. Oh, Jesus, let us change the world with your peace. Oh, Jesus, let us bring the nations to your feet. Let us walk alongside you as you bring the world around us to life, to life. You're bringing the world to life, showing us what it means to live. In you we live, we move, we breathe, bringing the world to life. Bringing the world to life, showing us what it means to live. In you we live, we move, we breathe, bringing the world to life. Bringing the world to life.